and welcome. Let's begin with health matters. Pakistan health workers combat polio spread. South Korea reports North Korean forces cross border mines explode. White House dismisses chip fakes claiming Biden's decline. US criticizes aggressive China for South China Sea clash and Putin to visit North Korea as anti-West alignment grows. Talking health matters, in Afghanistan and Pakistan, polio remains endemic in these countries. Pakistan launched an eradication campaign in 1999 to counter the spread of the disease. The country used to report 20,000 cases yearly, yet while the figure has dropped significantly, 5 so far this year, the spread continues. According to the Pakistan Polio Eradication Program, the country administers over 300 million doses of oral vaccine annually with the assistance of at least 350,000 vaccinators. Health workers, as well as accompanying security officials, are often harassed, ridiculed, taunted, threatened, and attacked physically. No less than 102 have been killed over the past 3 decades, including in campaigns carried out this year. Amid these attacks and refusals of vaccination, health workers also face low pay, salary delays, and tough working conditions. According to reports, some say they are paid as little as 1,360 rupees, that's approximately $5 for an 8-hour day. Polio survivors working on the eradication campaign said they receive few transport or health benefits despite their condition, leaving them to walk through tough terrain and dire weather conditions when carrying out their work. Security officials accompany polio workers in the field. At least 102 vaccination workers, officials, and security personnel have been killed over the past 3 decades, including in campaigns this year. Field workers are often harassed, taunted, and verbally and physically abused as they go door to door administering vaccines. Field workers often experience vaccine refusals at the end of journeys through tough terrain and demanding weather conditions. In this area on the outskirts of Karachi, temperatures reach 40 degrees Celsius. Pakistan has reported 357 polio cases since 2015, including 5 this year. In addition to human cases, wild poliovirus type 1 WPVI V1 has often been detected in environmental samples taken across the country. This year, WPVI has been found in 44 out of 159 districts across the country. Early on Tuesday, between 20 and 30 North Korean soldiers crossed the border between the two countries but returned after South Korean forces fired warning shots. South Korea's military has said the incident took place at about 8:30 a.m. on Monday local time when a group of North Korean soldiers in the central part of the demilitarized zone DMZ crossed the military demarcation line, report says, citing the Joint Chiefs of Staff JSC. The JCS said the group hurriedly returned after South Korean forces fired warning shots, saying they believe the crossing was not deliberate. A similar incident took place in the central zone of the DMZ just over a week ago. Many North Korean soldiers have been wounded or killed in landmine explosions in the border area, but did not say when the incident took place. The South Korean military also said the DMZ and line of control across the Korean peninsula is one of the world's most heavily fortified and mined borders. In November, North Korea said it would abandon a 2018 military agreement with Seoul and deployed more troops and equipment to the border after South Korea suspended parts of the deal in reaction to Pyongyang's successful launch of its first military spy satellite. Activity in the area has augmented since the GCS said North Korea was removing street lights and railway tracks, installing anti-tank barriers, and laying mines to establish barren land to boost security capabilities. The newest incident comes as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un prepares to welcome Russian President Vladimir Putin to Pyongyang as the two countries deepen their ties. Putin and Kim last met in eastern Russia last September. United States President Joe Biden's administration has accused his opponents of spreading propaganda about his physical and mental fitness after a series of viral videos reignited fears about the Democratic standard-bearer's age. White House Press Secretary Karen Jean-Pierre said in a news conference on Monday that a clip claiming to show Biden's decline had been deceptively edited or misrepresented. Republican social media accounts and conservative media outlets have shared videos purporting to show Biden 81 freezing up or wandering off on his own in recent days. Biden is shown appearing to wander away from other world leaders during a skydiving demonstration at the G7 summit in Italy in one clip. However, versions of the clip circulated by right-wing social media accounts were cropped to obscure a parachutist that Biden was walking towards when appearing to wander off. Another widely circulated clip shows Biden standing motionless while surrounded by people who are dancing to a music at the June 10th celebration held last week at the White House. In the most recent clip to go viral, Biden stops in front of the crowds at a fundraising gala for about 7 seconds before being led off stage by former President Barack Obama. Andrew Bates, Deputy White House Press Secretary, said on Monday that Biden's critics were pretending that taking an applauding crowd for a few seconds is somehow wrong to distract from the president's achievements. Ex-US President Donald Trump, who is running against Biden on the Republican ticket in November, has continually attacked the president over his age and fitness, although at 78, he's just 3 years younger. Either Biden or Trump will not be the oldest person to ever hold the office of the presidency by the end of his term. Still in the United States, on Monday, the United States criticized China over a collision with the Philippines in the disputed South China Sea, the newest in a series of progressively fraught confrontations that have raised the potential of a flashpoint for a global conflict in the vital waterway. According to statements from both nations, which blame each other for the incident, a Chinese vessel and a Philippine supply ship collided close to Second Thomas Shoal in the contested Spratly Island early on Monday. China claims indisputable sovereignty over almost all of the South China Sea and most of the islands and sandbars within it, including several features that are hundreds of miles from mainland China. Multiple governments, including Manila, hold competing claims. According to a report, Washington's ambassador to Manila, Mary Kay Carlson, said the U.S. condemned China's aggressive, dangerous maneuvers which caused bodily injury and damaged Philippine vessels. Neither the Philippines nor China reported injuries or damage from the collision, which comes just weeks after Philippine President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. cautioned that the death of any Filipino citizen at the hands of another country in the South China Sea will be very close to an act of war. Marcos has sought closer relations with the United States, which has continually stressed Washington's ironclad commitment to a 1951 mutual defense treaty between the U.S. and the Philippines that stipulates both sides would assist defend each other if either were attacked by a third party. The incident on Monday is the newest in a string of recent confrontations between Manila and Beijing that has raised concerns among Western observers of potentially developing into an international incident if China, a global power, decides to act more forcefully against the Philippines. Matthew Miller, U.S. State Department spokesperson, said on Monday, the United States stands with its ally, the Philippines, and condemns the escalatory and irresponsible actions by China. However, Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell on Monday discussed the collusion with Philippine Undersecretary of Foreign Affairs Maria Theresa Lazaro. China had obstructed the Philippines from executing a lawful maritime operation on the South China Sea, interfering with the Philippines' freedom of navigation, Campbell said, according to a State Department readout. The freshest incident marks the first run-in between the two countries since a new law in China took effect on Saturday to authorize its Coast Guard to seize foreign ships and detain crews alleged of trespassing for up to 60 days without trial. On Monday, the Chinese Coast Guard said a Philippine supply ship ignores China's repeated solemn warnings and deliberately and dangerously approached a Chinese vessel in an unprofessional manner, resulting in a collision. Away from the United States, now the Kremlin said Vladimir Putin is set to journey to North Korea for a 2-day visit beginning on Tuesday in the Russian president's first trip to the country in over 2 decades, on the newest sign of a deepening alignment that's raised widespread international concern. This is a sporadic overseas trip of Russia for Putin since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in 2022, and a significant moment for North Korean President Kim Jong-un, who has not hosted another world leader in Pyongyang, among the globe's most politically isolated capitals since the COVID-19 pandemic. The closely watched visit is anticipated to further cement a burgeoning partnership between the two powers that is founded on their shared animosity toward the West and driven by Putin's need for support in his ongoing war in Ukraine. Following his visit to North Korea, Putin will travel to Hanoi Wednesday for another 2-day trip in a display of communist-governed Vietnam's relations to Russia that is likely to rankle the United States. Putin's journey to North Korea will have a very eventful agenda, his aide Yuri Ushakov said on Monday. Both leaders plan to sign a new strategic partnership, Ushakov said, with major events of the visit scheduled for Wednesday. Ushakov insisted the agreement is not provocative or aimed against other countries, but is meant to ensure greater stability in Northeast Asia. He said the new agreement will replace documents signed between Moscow and Pyongyang in 1961, 2000, and 2001. John Kirby, U.S. National Security spokesperson, said on Monday the Biden administration wasn't concerned about the trip itself, but added, "What we are concerned about is the deepening relationship between the two countries." The U.S., South Korea, and other countries have accused North Korea of providing substantial military assistance to Russia's war efforts in recent months, while observers have raised concerns that Moscow may be violating international sanctions to support Pyongyang's development of its nascent military satellite program. Both countries have denied North Korean arms exports. Putin's trip reciprocates one Kim made last September when the North Korean leader traveled in his armored train to Russia's Far Eastern region for a visit that included stops at a factory that produces fighter jets and a rocket launch facility. It also comes as tensions remain high on the Korean peninsula amid growing international worries about the North Korean leader's intentions, as he added bellicose language and scrapped a long-standing policy of seeking peaceful reunification with South Korea. On Tuesday, South Korea fired warning shots after North Korean soldiers working in the demilitarized zone DMZ separating the two Koreas briefly crossed into the south, according to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the second incident of its kind in the last 2 weeks. On more stories now, Japan reports record rise in deadly bacterial infections. In Japan, cases of hazardous and highly fatal bacterial infection have reached record levels, official figures show, with experts so far unable to pinpoint the reason for the rise. Japan's health ministry had recorded 977 cases of streptococcal toxic shock syndrome (STSS) as of June 2nd, which has a mortality rate of up to 30%. Some 77 people have died from the infection between January and March, the newest figures available show. The ongoing outbreak in Japan has already exceeded last year's earlier record of 941 preliminary infections, the highest since statistics started in 1999. Japan's National Institute of Infectious Diseases reported 97 deaths due to STSS last year, the second highest number of fatalities in the past 6 years. STSS is a sporadic but serious bacterial infection that can develop when bacteria spread into deep tissues and the bloodstream. Patients initially suffer from fever, muscle pain, and vomiting, but symptoms can immediately turn life-threatening with low pressure, blood pressure, swelling, and several organ failure as the body goes into shock. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), even with treatment, STSS can be deadly. Out of 10 people with STSS, as many as 3 people would die from the infection. Most STSS cases are caused by the group A Streptococcus gas bacteria, which mainly produces fever and throat infections in children. In rare circumstances, strep A can become invasive when bacterium produces a toxin that enables it to gain access to the bloodstream, causing serious illnesses such as toxic shock. Strep A can also cause flesh-eating, necrotizing fasciitis, which can lead to loss of limbs. However, most patients who contract that disease have other health factors that may lower their body's ability to fight infections, such as cancer or diabetes, according to the CDC. Invasive group A strep infections were broadly curtailed by COVID-19 controls such as masking, social distancing, but after those measures were relaxed, many countries reported a rise in cases. 5 European countries reported to the World Health Organization an increase in invasive group A streptococcus IGAS in December 2022, with children under 10 the most affected. The CDC said it was also investigating an apparent increase in the disease at that time. On election matters, Iran airs first of 5 presidential debates before June 28th. On Monday, 6 presidential candidates deliberated Iran's economic problems in 4-hour live debates on state television ahead of the June 28th presidential poll following a helicopter crash last month that killed President Ibrahim Raisi and 7 others. It was the first of 5 debates planned in the 10 days remaining before the vote in a shut-in campaign to replace Raisi, a hardline prodigy of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, once floated as a possible successor to the 85-year-old cleric. The candidates were to deliberate their proposals and plans for Iran's spiraling economy, battling under sanctions from the United States and Western nations. They all promised they will try and get the sanctions lifted and introduce pledges, but none offered any details. The candidates also discussed inflation, the budget deficit, Iran's housing problems, and ways to fight corruption. The June 28th elections comes at a time of rising tensions between Iran and the West over Tehran's speedily advancing nuclear program, its arming of Russia in that country's war in Ukraine, and its wide-reaching crackdowns on dissent. Meanwhile, Iran's support of militia proxy forces throughout the broader Middle East have been progressively in the spotlight as Iran-backed Yemen's Houthi rebels attack ships in the Red Sea over the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip. 5 of the candidates are hardliners, while the 6th candidate, lawmaker Masoud Pezeshkian, 69, is a hard sojourner who has the support of pro-reformers. On Israel-Gaza conflict, Netanyahu dissolves war cabinet overseeing Gaza conflict. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dissolved the influential war cabinet that was saddled with the responsibility of steering the war in Gaza, Israeli officials say. The 3-person war cabinet was dissolved a week after Benny Gantz, a popular opposition lawmaker and ex-military chief, quit Netanyahu's governing coalition in frustration over how the war was being handled. In the early days of the war, Gantz demanded a small cabinet with Defense Minister Yoav Gallant be created as a way to sideline far-right lawmakers in Netanyahu's government. The officials, who spoke on condition of anonymity, said on Monday that going forward, Netanyahu will hold smaller forums with some of his government members for sensitive issues. Critics say Netanyahu's wartime decision-making has been influenced by ultranationalists in his government who oppose a deal with Hamas for a ceasefire in exchange for the release of hostages. Those hardline politicians have voiced support for the voluntary migration of Palestinians out of Gaza, presently home to some 2.3 million people, and a return to military occupation over the territory. Netanyahu denies the accusations and says he has the country's best interest in mind. According to Gaza's health ministry, Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza has killed over 37,100 people, which does not distinguish between combatants and civilians in its count. The war has mainly cut off the flow of food, medicine, and other supplies to Palestinians who are facing widespread starvation. Israel launched the war after Hamas's October 7th attack, in which militants stormed into southern Israel, killed about 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and abducted about 250. Now I'll take a short break. Stories on Zoom and Nigeria. Please don't go anywhere. You're welcome back. Now, stories from Nigeria. Obi urges federal government to focus on poverty, not new presidential jets. Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party LP in the 2023 election, has called out the federal government for seeking to obtain new aircraft for the presidential fleet despite the nation's economic woes. Obi, who criticized the planned purchase as insensitive and unacceptable, said it was unfortunate that the executive was thinking of luxury amidst the suffering of Nigerians. He said, and I quote, "At a time when our country is on the front page of global newspapers for facing its worst economic crisis, marked by high inflation, a falling currency, and widespread poverty, the government is contemplating buying new presidential jets. These demonstrate extreme insensitivity to citizens' struggles. With rising insecurity, poverty, hunger, and homelessness, this decision highlights the disconnect that is apparent between the government and the people. It is unacceptable as the situation in the country today more than ever demands a more compassionate use of resources, prioritizing citizens' welfare. It's on record that our presidential jets have an average of age of 12 years, purchased when most Nigerians could afford necessities. Now, as our country faces significant challenges, including a high debt profile, our citizens are even in greater need. Instead of adding to our luxuries, we should be focused on alleviating their suffering and finding solutions to their problems." Again, on health matters, cholera spread fears rise as students return to school. As schools resume from the midterm break and the Salah holiday on Wednesday, there are concerns the pupils may be at risk of contracting cholera, a food and waterborne disease triggered by the ingestion of the Vibrio cholera bacteria. Public health experts noted that the disease, which broke across the country last week, could spread fast in schools if precautionary measures were not in place to prevent it. The chief of UNICEF Lagos Field Office, Celine Lafocrea, against this background, has called for widespread measures to protect school children, noting that concerted efforts must be made to stop disruption in the academic calendar over the spread of the disease. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, had recently cautioned the public of the growing trend of cholera cases as the rainy season increases. The NCDC stated that from January 1st to June 11th, 2024, over 1,141 suspected and over 65 confirmed cases of cholera, resulting in over 30 deaths, had been reported from 96 local government areas in 36 states, noting that the 10 states contributing 90% to the burden of the present cholera outbreak include Bayelsa, Zamfara, Abia, Cross River, Bauchi, Delta, Katsina, Imo, Nasarawa, and Lagos states. Explaining the need to prevent the disease outbreak in schools, Lufakria noted that children face substantial health risks, particularly those under 5 who are prone to severe dehydration and higher mortality rates. A recap of major stories says Pakistan health workers combat polio spread. South Korea reports North Korean forces cross border, mines explode. White House dismisses cheap fakes claiming Biden's decline. US criticizes aggressive China for South China Sea clash, and Putin to visit North Korea as anti-West alignment grows. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Rankin.